While there are great maps in the 20-year history of the Battlefield franchise, there are also others that are dramatically imbalanced, poorly laid out, or simply disasters of design. This is the story of the worst maps of Battlefield. Finding itself on the list of the worst maps of Battlefield is Battlefield 1's Caporetto. However, this is a map which is banging on the mid-tier door and only barely falling into this category. There are still worse offenders in Battlefield 1 to cover. Caporetto launched with the Battlefield 1 Apocalypse DLC, an expansion which, aside from Passchendaele, was pretty underwhelming in terms of map gems. Inspired by the battle of the same name which occurred in Slovenia in 1917, the map terrain is one of rugged, snowy hillsides nestled against the cliffs of Rocky Mountains. True to its picturesque real-life counterpart, the locale is, well, absolutely breathtaking. Caporetto may be one of the single most beautiful maps in Battlefield history. When not subject to the weather effects of fog or heavy snow, the landscape beyond the map border is distractingly gorgeous. The fires of the forests on the opposite bank contrast to the barren gray environment that players must experience. The smoke and clouds accentuate the orange burning sky, both of the embers and of the majestic setting sun, the lighting position of which reflects beautifully on the river in the valley and the white pockets of snow. Even the mountains have a grand appearance, highlighted by shades of glowing color and shadows cast from the cliff edges. From certain perspectives of the spectator camera, this map is an artistic masterpiece. But from a gameplay perspective, I wish the map terrain that the player has to experience would have received more attention. Within the confines of the map border, from the Austro-Hungarian main base to the pre-captured Italian flags below, there is a blandness. Despite the landscape being marred with rocks cut by canyons and littered with uneven crevices, player cover can actually be hard to find given the lack of visual landmarks and hordes of enemies rushing around the flanks. It gets repetitive and simply dull, especially during adverse weather conditions. The significant feature on the map, the ruined bastion of Castello di Solcan, which constitutes the B flag, lacks residual detail or personality. It does provide the most significant cover and area of close quarters encounters on the map, but it makes you wish there was more to it beyond the few statues and looming player-accessible watchtowers. Piecemeal fortifications and military hardware are scarcely encountered, and really this is the biggest gripe. While the terrain decoration and pathing structure is substantial, the map needed more assets to make it stand out. It feels empty, and the few trenches and artillery positions offer nothing which can't be found on any other Battlefield 1 map. Part of the reason it needs this extra detail is because of the constricted, curved nature of this moderately sized 5-flag map. Following an initial breakout of the Austro-Hungarian team, hordes of players from both sides run around attacking from every direction. Any idea of a battlefront goes out the window, and getting shot in the back or run down by one of the map's many cavalry options becomes the norm. And moving out among the rocks will likely put you in line of sight of many snipers who use the rocks as cover along the high ground. But compounding this issue are the vehicle options. Caporetto is not the biggest of maps, even on Conquest Assault, its premier game mode. And so, not having any tank options is completely fine. However, each team was given 2 aircraft, and while in theory that isn't a big deal, Battlefield 1's system of allowing players to choose up to 2 Ilya Muromets heavy bombers on this map is mind-boggling. Caporetto is a Conquest Assault map, and at the beginning of the round, both teams rush to fill the bottleneck pass between the A flag and the Austro-Hungarian main. Both teams, deadlocked and clustered in a small pass, you know where this is going. At the start of the round, and AA turrets be damned, players have learned that by picking a Murmets off the bat and flying straight to this engagement, substantial kills can be achieved. On the Austro-Hungarian side, the planes spawn coming straight out of the pass, perfectly lined up for targets. Sure, they may be shot down by the AA at the castle ruins, but it's worth it. Assuming an Austro-Hungarian breakout is even successful, these planes remain frustrating throughout a round. It's not that they can't be killed, it's that the payload they deliver over such a wide range is so substantial compared to the map size and its ease of use. They simply shouldn't have been an option on the map. The other planes are fine. Oddly enough, it is precisely because of the early Muromets bombing runs that some teams even manage to break out, as they clear a path for long enough to make it happen. But this shouldn't be a requirement to make or break a map. Speaking of breaking out, once it does happen, the battle presses into 5 flags which can be found in a constricted layout. The A flag, the Aurora Lookout, is the first target for the attackers. A set of defensive lines up the mountain offers solid cover and protection for players, but are vulnerable to flanks. That being said, cover down the mountain on the approach is spotty, and defenders can obliterate most attackers. Usually, once this flag is captured, the Italian team rarely ever gets it back, if at all, as the slope back up the hill is incredibly dangerous, open, and prone to enemy reinforcements on the higher ground. More practically, the fight begins to center around the next flag, B, the aforementioned Castello di Salcan, purely out of substance and cover. The towering ruins of the main hall conceal the flag, and rubble litters the area. It isn't the most protected flag by any means, but you still need to be careful of enemies hiding along the walls. The 2 watchtowers nearby are accessible to players, providing a height advantage, and flesh out the location in a cool, medieval sort of way. A flame tripper kit sits nearby. Moving on to the C flag, a tiny stone bridge over an eroded fissure. To me, this objective is the most wasted opportunity of Caporetto. This area gives me minimalist vibes of the Refractor Engine games when structures were so scarce purely out of primitive necessity. Given that this flag sits beside the mountain, this could have been an old mine entrance with a small labyrinth of tunnels within, both concealing another capture point, but also adding a section of major cover from aerial bombardment. Instead, it sits so empty, one wonders if it should have been a flag location at all. The D flag, Trauma Redoubt, sits near the riverbank. It is a series of trenches and log bunkers which slightly obfuscate the flagpole, which sits behind it at the lowest end. These fortifications do little to provide cover around the objective area, which make it one of the most open flags on the map. Even from the lowest trench nearby, you would have to be prone to remain hidden, and even then, the elevation change might get you spotted anyway. A sentry kit sits nearby under the arches of the destroyed railway bridge. This bridge also tends to have several lingering campers lurking around, using it as cover to snipe or watch players move between the flags of D and the final one, E. The Capello Grove, an artillery firebase, is what we would consider the main flag of the defending team. When held by the Italians, it consists of 3 horses and provides 2 light cars and 1 armored car. It also houses 2 field guns, 2 AA guns, and 2 siege guns, which are regularly manned and frustrate players already having issues finding cover. Between the train tracks and the flag radius lies fairly exposed terrain, even with the lines of trenches which approach. The 4 flags of B, C, D, and E make up the majority of a full round, assuming a breakout is achieved. Even then, the map continually descends towards the river, creating blobs of players fighting over uneven terrain. The defending Italians remain at a significant disadvantage as a result. It is a weird situation with 64 players, almost exclusively fighting on open fronts and being flanked constantly. This also makes the map very susceptible to explosive spam in the form of grenades, airburst mortars, and field artillery pieces, and multiple Livens projector emplacements. This being Battlefield 1, it is almost a certainty that nearly all players on the map are spotted at all times, given its size and propensity for recon class flares everywhere. Lastly, this environment, being too rocky for tanks or most cars to function properly, is crawling with horse assets. While this is not a bad thing, with no main of their own, once certain flags are captured, Italy can no longer access them, while the attacking team can utilize up to 9 at a time. While cavalry assets are not the most powerful thing in the world, the amount of them circling the confines of the map layout are a huge distraction when you're already facing numerous enemies from different directions. Being Conquest Assault, there is no reinforcements for the Italian team. And without a main base, players tend to flail from one random flag to the next without regard for positioning or strategic importance. This is a major fault of the Conquest Assault game mode. While it was once a staple mode of Battlefield games past, it hasn't aged well. Even in the oldest games, just as it is demonstrated here, the most common outcomes are having the attacking team spawn trapped the entire time, or a steamroll begins and the accumulated map assets and flags simply cap out the defending team in record time. Usually because the map flow gets so chaotic and scattered that players fail to realize a cap out even occurred, and that they can no longer spawn. On Caporetto, it is the tight squeeze of the map boundaries and the elevation advantage which make it unwieldy. If its game mode was standard Conquest, and perhaps the map extended around the mountain a bit more and evenly balanced out the terrain heights, I think players would have had a better experience. Again, it's not that the design is god-awful, but flawed. Caporetto feels mixed up. It has the wrong game mode, insignificant map detail within its borders, and consistently wild elevation change. Were factors slightly different, there is a possibility that Caporetto could have been one of the most popular maps in the game. As it stands, it can be a very rough experience. It is worth wondering whether Battlefield 1 players vote for the map, or others yet stay in the server and grind it out, purely for its aesthetics. Because seriously, you can't deny that view.